For us. Wow. So a few weeks ago, somebody in the congregation said to me that they love getting to know me through my stories that I tell about my past. So have I got a story for you today? So when I was about 7 years old, my mom and dad sat my sister and I down and said, "You guys are going to summer camp this summer, and it's a sleepaway camp, and you're going to be gone for a whole month." Yeah, that brought me so much anxiety. And we weren't one of those families that are more prevalent nowadays where everybody processes together, right? We share our feelings about going away to camp and the anxiety. None of that. I just went to my room and freaked out, as you might imagine. And I said a little bit to my mom. I was like, "God, Mom, I'm not going to know anybody there. This is kind of scary." And she said, "Well, your sister will be there." And you guys know, those of you that have heard me before, my sister and I were bitter enemies, so that was no comfort whatsoever. Oh, I knew she'd be scheming to torment me while I was there, so that just upped the anxiety. So we went to camp, and it was really beautiful. It was in Simi Valley, just gorgeous. It was a Jewish summer camp, beautiful grounds. They had horseback riding, and it was run by really groovy Jewish people. That's the only way I can describe them. They were really great. And so I started to feel more okay with it. I had great bunk mates, and I had a great counselor. And something that this camp did once a year, or once during the summer months, is they had a baseball game, because there was a part of the campus that was college students, and then all of the other kids in another part of the property. And so they were going to have this big, tribal parade over to this is what the camp kids would do. We'd travel over there, and we challenged them to a baseball game. And I thought, well, that sounds cool. And then the camp director, who usually goes and leads us on horseback, he asked me to be on the horse with him. And I thought, oh, I like this camp. I like this place because I get to be on the horse, riding with, his name was Benjamin. I get to ride with Benjamin at the front of the parade with all of the camp kids behind us, going into the college kids and just throwing down the gauntlet and saying, "We challenge you to a baseball game." I was so excited. It was like mythical, right? So the day comes, and we go over to the stables, and we get on the horse, and all the kids are there, and we're walking over. Here comes the parade, and we move into the area where the college kids are located, and we see some housing, and then there's this unpaved street, some more buildings, and it's just lined up with college students. This was a huge deal, and I'm getting all excited. I'm sitting there on this horse, looking at everybody going, "Look at me, I'm on the horse, you're not. This is great. I'm so important. Wow." And so here we go. So we're walking down the street, and people are yelling, and they're cheering, and it's, woo, it's just great. And then the horse gets really freaked out, and it rears up, and me and Benjamin went flying off the horse and hit the ground. And my God, he broke my fall, but then the horse stepped on my leg. And as you might imagine, the parade was over. We got taken to the infirmary. I was fine. He was fine. I had a gigantic bruise on my leg that I was very proud to show everybody. And, I got a lot of love from that experience, and I didn't feel traumatized or anything like that. So I was just kind of working it the way I work it. And then a few days later, our bunk went for their weekly horseback ride. So I woke up knowing that we were going to have to get back on the horses and do that. And I told my counselor that I was not going to go. I was not interested on getting back on the horse. The trauma was starting to show up. And she said, "You're going." She goes, "You have got to get back on the horse. So get dressed. You're going with us to go horseback riding." So I thought, okay, she was bigger than me, and I have no choice here. So I got dressed, and we went over to the stables. And there was this wonderful person there who took us on the horseback rides and took care of the horses, and her name was Nina. And Nina pulled me aside, and she said, "I heard what happened." She goes, "That must have been really scary." And I said, "Yeah." I go, "I'm really scared to get back on a horse. That was just, it was hard." She goes, "Well, we're going to do this." She said, "We're going to put you on Pinto." Pinto is this little horse that I really loved because he was low to the ground, and he was just fun. He was a fun horse. And she said, "Let's put you on Pinto, and you'll feel safe on Pinto. You'll work through it. It'll be fine." And she said, "Let me tell you a few more things, just in case something like that happens again." And I'm like going, "Oh God, no, that was not happening again." But she said, here's some tips. She said, "Should that start to happen, Hold the reins just right, not too tight, not too loose, just hold them just right. She goes, then you grab the mane of the horse and you squeeze him with your legs. And then you will stay on that horse. And when he's done bucking, he'll stop, and then you're fine. And I'm like going, oh my God, this is way too much information. I can barely, the thought of even getting on a horse is kind of nerve-wracking for me. But I did, and so I got on Pinto, and I loved Pinto. He was so fun, and I was a little nervous, and then we just started moving. Everything was fine. It was just this property was so gorgeous. We're going up through these hills and around. Pinto's doing great. I even ran him through a field that we get to run through. He galloped, and it was all good. It was really great, and I felt like, oh my God, I got back on the horse, and this is so good, and Pinto, this is great. And then we get to this little place. It's like a row of really small oleander plants. And so we're about 10 minutes out from the stables. So we start walking towards this little area, and Pinto decides he's going to turn into a bucking bronco. So he starts bucking, and I'm going, are you kidding me? And I did what she told me. I held just right to the reins, got his mane squeezed. He's bucking. I'm going, oh my God. It felt like an eternity. It was like maybe 15 seconds. So he's doing that, and then he calms down, and I'm going, whew, I'm still on Pinto. I did it. We got back to the stables. I got off the horse, and I'm going, I don't know if I ever want to do this again. It was so nerve-wracking. And as I look back on that experience, I have to say the universe was screaming at me. And it wasn't about what was going on at the horses. It started when my mom interrupted my world and said, you're going away for a month. And I had to deal with the unknown. I had to deal with the uncertainty of going somewhere where I didn't know anybody except my torturing sister. I was going somewhere where I didn't know what to expect at all. I had something that came into my life that I didn't know how to cope with. And then I had the things with the horses. How do you cope with that? But something arrived for me to learn. Spiritual resilience. I really love teaching about spiritual resilience because I think that it's called for in our daily lives because life shows up for us in ways that are really uncomfortable and really disturbing sometimes. Whether it's a change of a job, whether it's the death of a partner, whether it's just something unusual that comes into our life that we just don't know how to grasp. We need to call upon that spiritual resilience because we all have it. We all have it inside of ourselves. I found this really cool little cowgirl thing, since we're on a cowgirl thing here. Life changes without our permission. It's our attitude that determines the ride. Because when life shows up for us, and a lot of trauma people are talking about this nowadays, it really isn't the trauma, but it's how we're dealing with it or not dealing with it that we have to look at, right? Because the attitude of how do I deal with the uncertainty? How do I deal with the upset? How do I deal with that and be able to move through it without falling apart and just going into a ditch? That's the question for us. And the thing is, we all have these things in our lives. And so when life changes without our permission, without our consent, it's up to us to figure out how to walk through it to the other side, to a better place. Ernest Holmes says there's a wellspring of life and perfection at the center of our being, upon which we may draw. And he's really alluding to what we talked about in the religions today, that God part of us, that God self. If you don't like the word God, I get it. You could call it spirit, you could call it love, infinite intelligence, the universe, your higher self, Big Laura, whatever. We all got a name for it, and that's the name to go to realize that even though this outside world can throw us off the horse, so to speak, that wellspring is alive and well, and that's the time to turn to it because it is perfect, it is nourishing, and when we draw upon that resource, we have the strength to move through any experience that we have in life. Like tiny seeds with potent power to push through tough ground and become mighty trees, we hold innate reserves of unimaginable strength. We are resilient. I mean, I told you my story. I was 7 years old, for God's sakes. I didn't really have a lot of wisdom inside of me to be able to move through what I moved through, but there was something there. There was something that was like this tiny seed. We talk about the mustard seed. We all have that mustard seed. It's inside of us. And when we have issues that come up in life that are difficult, it doesn't matter how tiny that little flame is. If you recognize it and pay attention to it, it expands. That's the thing. If we focus on it, you don't have to have the solutions. You don't have to know what you need to do. You just have to say, there's a seed inside of me that's potential, that's filled with life, that I can call upon when I feel like my life has fallen apart. That's all we have to do is recognize that flame, that fire, that God self, that spirit, that love, that intelligence, whatever you want to call it. Just see it. It will do the rest. And we all have it. I know some people like to say, I don't have it. You do. We all do. Don't come to me saying that, because I will tell you, you got it. So this is, I know people always look at me cross-eyed when I tell them I'm doing something from the New Testament. I was raised Jewish, as I alluded to in my first part of my talk. But every now and then there's such a great nugget I like to share. Jesus says, rise up, take up thy bed and walk. Easy for him to say, right? That consciousness. But you know what? I think that he had something really important for us. Because sometimes, and I can speak for myself in some of my experiences that have knocked me to the floor, where I just wanted to stay in bed all day, where there was nothing inside of me that felt like it was alive. And when we do that, we tend to just ruminate in that darkness. And if you stay in your bed, nothing's going to happen there. You're not going anywhere. You're stagnant. And I know sometimes it's hard not to get up. I get it. It's so big. But we must rise up and walk. We must rise up and walk. And we can. It takes just one first step out of that bed to see life come to life when we come to life. And I know sometimes it can be a struggle to do that. Just take one step. One step is all to start the energy of growth, of healing, of expansion. One step. You've got this. This is my talk title, by the way. You've got this. Yeah, you've got this. There are so many times when you don't feel like you've got it. There's so many times I have not felt like I had it in my life, right? But we've all got this, because we've all got this inside of ourselves. We've got that God energy inside of ourselves. So if we've got that, we've got this. Now, some of you might be saying, I don't even understand what you're talking about with this God thing. And some people don't. There was a time in my life where I was a proclaimed atheist. I said, there cannot be a God. Given what's going on in this world, there's no God, seriously? And I lived like that for a very long time. And there came a point in my life where I missed that spirit. I missed feeling it. And I realized I was going through a part of my life where I was redefining what God was to me. That's all. What I had thought it was no longer working. And I needed to find a new way of seeing spirit in my life. And when I could see that inside of me, like we teach, it's inside of you, all I had to do was say, I feel it. When I look at a sunrise, there's something that stirs inside of me that is beyond my senses. It's something that's heart. And that wakes me up to seeing the resilience inside of me, to see that I've got this because I've got this. And this takes me where I need to go. This helps me heal. This leads me to where I need to go. You know, we rely on ourselves so much to get us through, to figure it out. But there's something bigger that we are, we're in, that's everywhere present, something bigger than what our little minds think we have available to us. And that's what we teach here. There's infinite ideas. There's infinite changes you could make in your life. But you do not have to figure it out with this. You figure out with a greater mind, the mind of spirit. And all it takes is for you to recognize it exists and to listen. That's it. You don't need to read 25 books. You don't need to go to 1,000 classes. You just need to be able to find it inside of you. And the choice is yours. You know, sometimes it doesn't feel like that. This room is filled with experiences that really hurt. Maybe we're still feeling it. We've still got the residual of that pain and that suffering. We don't feel like we're at choice at all, but we are. Because whatever you're noticing in your life, if you're noticing I'm really upset about something. If you see that, then the alternative is also present. It's when we're unconscious of it. It's when we're just allowing it to run as a tape. I am sad, that is who I am. When I can say, first be the observer and say, I am sad, I'm putting it out here, but it is not who I am. It's just how I feel right now. I feel sad, but I'm not sad. I'm so much more than the emotion of sad. I've just presented myself with a choice to be something else. And that's the beginning of the healing journey, to move from the sad to the something else. And I do not want to misrepresent and say it happens like that, because we know there's process. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to move from the sorrow to the joy again. But all we need to do is get back on the horse. Get back on the horse of knowing where you can go. So I have the wisdom of Nina, who was the wonderful woman who taught me how to stay on beautiful Pinto. And I was thinking about the things she said to me, how they can be translated into tools for us to use in our life. So she said, don't hold the reins too tight or too loose. So don't try to control your experiences. Sometimes we just want to get in there and work it and make it be something different. But when we're going through our life experiences of change, of transformation, of healing, of moving from sorrow to feeling better, we can't control it tightly. We've got to just be aware of its movement, be aware of what we're walking through. It's becoming the observer of the experience. So not too tight and not too loose. Just right, as they say in Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You just want to be with it. We want to just be with it, because experiences, let's not forget, experiences don't lock us into one place. We get locked into them because they paralyze us. But experience is meant to move. We're meant to move, not stay stuck. And so when we stop being afraid of the experience, become the observer, see what's going on, hold the reins just right, don't resist it, just go. When we do that, the experience moves with us, and we don't stay stuck, and we can have a better life. Nina then said this, hold on to the horse's mane and squeeze your legs. That's just being one with the experience, right? Just being one with it all. And again, the experience isn't you. It's something you're working through. It's something that you're just riding through like a horse through a field. That's all. And these experiences, they're meant to grow us and expand us. They're there for a reason. They're not there to hurt us. They're not there to destroy us. They're there to teach. And we have to figure out what that is in our own minds. So the last thing Nina said was, the horse will calm down. This too shall pass. Things always pass. It's us that doesn't allow that. When we hold on to it as our history, this is who I am, they don't pass. But when we allow that experience to finish itself out, to complete itself, to process through it, it passes, it's over, and we're just left with learning something, having an awareness, hopefully a growth, an expansion. So a good friend of mine, Tracy Smith, has this thing called BBF. She just wrote a book. I forgot what it's called. Sorry, Tracy. You can find it in the bookstore in the near future. She has this thing called the bounce back factor. And I love that idea because we all have a bounce back factor. So she says, it's really important to look at your bounce back factor and see if it's working. Are you bouncing back? Are you able to turn it around? And again, this isn't spiritual bypass. This is just, are you able at some point in your experience to bounce back? And you know what? We all have a BBF. It's just time for us to be aware, where are we with it, right? Because you can develop it. You can develop it by building your spiritual muscle. And I was going to give you a whole list of things to do. And I thought, that's going to bore them to tears. Don't do it. But I do encourage you to meditate, to continue coming to service, to take classes, pray. All that stuff's really great. But I'm going to give you something really simple. At least once a day, right where I am, God is. If God doesn't work for you, substitute it for the name that works. Right where I am, Spirit is. Right where I am, infinite love is. Whatever. This importance of recognizing the power and presence of Spirit is bigger than you know. It's bigger than you know. And if you are declaring at least once a day, I would recommend 3 to 5. But if you are doing this at least once a day, you're recognizing that there is something bigger than you that is right where you are all the time. You are going to build your spiritual muscle just by doing that. You're going to start feeling lighter. You're going to start realizing, I'm not alone. This isn't just my responsibility. There is a great universal energy that's with me. And all these people are with me. And they help. And we pull each other up together because we're interconnected. So to recognize that interconnective principle of spirit alive and well in you, as you, and all life builds up your spiritual muscle and your resiliency. Because you have that faith that you can do it. Because you've got this and you've got this. So I'm going to end with Oprah today. She had this great quote. We're not in control of what life throws at us, right? We're not. But we are always in control of how we react to it. That is in our control. That we can do something with. That is the beauty of the obstacles we face. Challenges are always an opportunity to strengthen our adaptability. That is such an important concept. Adaptability. We are all adaptable. You know, we've been adapting since we were born. We've been adapting to circumstances, to our environment, to experiences. You can adapt. We are wired for it. And challenges allow us to practice that. Also, strengthen our resilience and our empathy, our understanding of others. They force us to grow in different directions and see things in a new light. And for me, just going back to my original story, had I not been sent away to summer camp, look what I would have missed out on. Look what I would have missed out on. A huge bruise, falling off a horse. I would have missed out on big spiritual growth. I came back from summer camp a whole different girl. I was a girl. I was 7. I came back different. I had such a strength inside of me because I did it. Because I did it. I survived being thrown off a horse once and almost twice. I made new friends. I found out something that was independent of what I thought was something I needed in my life, my parents, and where I lived. I realized that there's a resilience inside of me that I can trust, that pulls me through, that makes circumstances come to a place of harmony when I see the power within. And so if we're going to grow in our lives, which the universe is always pulling us to do, if we're going to grow and say yes to it all, we really need to see that we do have this life. We have this God inside of ourselves. We have it all. And all we need to do is recognize it. That's it. Thank you for listening to me and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Namaste.
It's absolutely wonderful. Now's the time for